Well, surprise, surprise. BYU and the Big 12 got disrespected by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, and things are not great for multiple reasons. But what will really set you off is the reasoning given by the chair of the Playoff Selection Committee. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. Here on this channel, we talk college football conference realignment all day, every day. Please subscribe if you haven't. Be the smartest college football fan in your group chat. So we got the first college football playoff rankings last night. I am sure that nobody is particularly surprised around here that the Big 12 did not get as much respect as at least I think they should. Most people think they should. And the good news is I did see quite a bit of national sentiment, even those who cover the sport on a national level, sticking up for BYU and where the Cougars got stuck. So BYU unbeaten. They are at number 9 in the initial college football playoff rankings. That is behind not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 one-loss teams, which doesn't come as a huge shock, but it is pretty infuriating, especially when, if we're talking about resume here, BYU has as many wins against the committee's top 25 as Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, and Indiana combined. Not just as many as all those teams, as many as all those teams combined. Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, and Indiana combined. Yet they are ranked behind all of them. Every single one. If you want to break that out a little bit further, Miami is all the way up at number 4, with their best win being Louisville. Perhaps Florida. That's Miami's resume. Texas at number 5. Their best win is Michigan or Oklahoma. Texas, number 5. Number 6, Penn State, another team that does not have a win against the committee's top 25. None of those 3, Miami, Texas, and Penn State, have a win against the committee's top 25. Meanwhile, BYU has 2. Not only have the Cougars mauled K-State, who checked in at number 19 in the initial rankings. That final was 38-9. But they also won on the road at SMU, who is in the top 15 of the initial college football playoff selection committee rankings. So that sure seems to be like a pretty strong resume for BYU. Now, unfortunately, what appears to have happened here is what people were saying, like even myself included for a while, about power ranking the Big 12, where you felt like Iowa State may have the higher ceiling, but BYU definitely has the better resume. It is my opinion that the college football playoff rankings should be much more about what has actually transpired on the field. Who have you beat? What's your resume like? Unfortunately, the committee doesn't seem to see it that way. More on that in just a moment. A couple of other data points for you. BYU has a better strength of record than Ohio State. So, say what you will about the Buckeyes. They did win at Penn State. I recognize that as a good win. They went toe-to-toe with Oregon. But strength of record, pretty strong for BYU. I'm not saying they should be above Ohio State necessarily, but that should probably have them higher than number 9. BYU has a strength of schedule that's ranked number 63 in the country, which I know you would probably scoff at. BYU haters would certainly scoff at. But what about Indiana, who is right in front of them? Indiana's strength of schedule is ranked 103rd. 103rd. So that is quite the gap between BYU and Indiana. Now, I will actually say I would fight for BYU and Indiana to be higher up the food chain here, with the Hoosiers having beaten everybody by an average of 33 points per game this year. That is worthy of respect. And they, much like BYU, are behind all of those teams, the 5 one-loss teams that I mentioned, that are also in front of the Cougars. So I think Indiana definitely has a case and definitely has a beef there, and people should be going to bat with them. But the question between BYU and Indiana would come down to, what do you value? Margin of victory versus who have you actually beaten? And a lot of this feels like if you swap the conferences, it would still be Indiana that got the edge here. If it's Indiana, who had not been blasting everybody quite that way, but had wins over 2 top 20 teams in the playoff rankings, I feel pretty strongly that they would still be in front of BYU if it was BYU who had the exact same resume and was just pummeling everybody. Thus is life, unfortunately, in a non-Power 2 league. And it does feel like we're definitely finding that out here. Selection Committee Chair Ward Manuel did get asked about Indiana versus BYU specifically. Here was his explanation.
Well, two great teams, like you said. I mean, Indiana, their strength of schedule is not as strong as BYU's, but what Indiana has done on the field, when we look at those games, they're winning by double digits, averaging 33 points a game, more than their opponents. They're solid on both sides, offensively and defensively. They're just a really, really great team, and so is BYU. And so as we contemplated, as we discussed, as we looked at everything, Indiana was ranked number 8 by the committee, and BYU is right behind them at 9.
Now, the part that's worse than that explanation that will definitely make you, no pun intended, roll your eyes is the fact that Manuel also offered the eye test as the difference between Miami all the way up at number 4 and BYU at number 9. The eye test, which is definitely enough to make me roll my eyes. But we got this. This was a transcript from a Q&A with the media. This was not on ESPN, but a later Q&A with Ward Manuel. He said, I think both teams are obviously very good. And when we look at how Miami has played, particularly their offensive prowess, they were impressive in their win against Louisville. And they had a really dominant showing at the beginning of the year against Florida, came back against Cal in a very late night contest. Okay. Came back against Cal in a late night contest. What about BYU coming back against Oklahoma State in a late night contest? Neither Cal nor Oklahoma State is really very good. Manuel went on to say BYU as well is very strong. Impressive wins against SMU, number 13, and number 19, Kansas State, in a dominant fashion. It really came down to more of an eye test as it related to looking at both teams, and the committee, as we ranked them, saw them in that fashion. It came out in that order. Very, very frustrating, right? And that is the fear. If you are not in a Power 2 league now, the eye test is your worst enemy, and that's what you did not want to come out here, but unfortunately it is. And I don't know, maybe the committee has just been spooked by good old Greg Sankey and the SEC and Big Ten potentially threatening to go off and do their own thing if they didn't get enough teams in here. So all this will be moot if BYU just wins out. I mean, if they win out and win the Big 12 championship game, doesn't matter. They'll get the automatic bid. They'll be a 4 seed. They'll get a bye. But if they slip up, even if they come back to win the Big 12 championship, but they lose to, say, Utah this week, they may not pass number 12 Boise State. That is the other piece that's important in these rankings. Boise State got a lot of love. They're number 12 in the country. And if that happens, where BYU lost, then won out, and didn't get up past number 12, well, then Boise State would take, and it wouldn't be number 12. Boise would probably keep moving up too, assuming they keep winning. If you're not above Boise, then Boise gets that 4 seed and the automatic bye as one of the 4 highest ranked conference champions. That would be disastrous. Now, you talk about how we want multiple teams from the Big 12 in the playoff, what that would mean. That would definitely be important and great, but it would be so much more damning to not get the automatic bye, not get the 4 seed in the first year of the playoff, getting bounced by a group of 5 team. Perception-wise for the Big 12, that would be a huge hit. And on top of that, I always say, what's the one thing that is going to change the national perception? It's going to be winning games in the playoff, or just anytime you're playing a marquee SEC or Big Ten team. It will be much harder if you don't get that automatic bye, because in both scenarios, you're likely playing a number 5 seed. I imagine if BYU is not higher ranked than Boise at the end of the year, or whoever Big 12 team, whichever Big 12 team it is, they would probably be the 12 seed, which means in the first round, you're going on the road to play the 5 seed. Whereas if you get that bye as a 4, you can sit there and wait, get rest, and the 5 seed would have to go play a home game against a 12 seed, win that, and then you go play at a neutral field. So you're getting rest and a neutral field instead of first round, no rest, and you got to go to that opponent on the road. Brutal. That would be brutal for your chances to win, and brutal from a perception standpoint. As far as the rest of the Big 12 here, Iowa State, K-State, and Colorado are at 17, 19, and 20, respectively. Similar spots to their AP rankings, but of course, there are 4 2-loss SEC teams ahead of 1-loss Iowa State. So the beat goes on there, and we see how the committee is going to handle things here. So I don't know. Are any of those teams at 17, 19, or 20 high enough in the Big 12 if they were to win out to surpass Boise in the rankings and actually get the auto bid if they win out, beat, say, an unbeaten BYU in the Big 12 championship game? Hopefully Boise State does not have a strong schedule the rest of the way. They're not going to be picking up marquee wins. But you never know. This first playoff ranking, not looking so great for the Big 12. If you're a Big 12 fan and you want this type of news straight to your inbox multiple times a week for free, no SEC or Big 10 bias, you get the big stories and how they affect the Big 12, you can subscribe by clicking the link in the description to my Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Click the link in the description or just go to ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com to join 2,800 plus other Big 12 fans who are also reading Open for Business. Let me know in the comments, did the committee get it right? Or am I just being too much of a homer Big 12 guy? Tell me about it in the comments, and I will talk to you guys soon.